Hi, friends. I'm Nancy Fox.
And I'm Elaine Doran. Welcome back to Deep Diving Divas.
Glad that you're here. Thank you. And today we are diving into a memoir that pulls you right into the complicated issues of divorce, love, and identity. It's called Every Other Weekend Coming of Age with Two Different Dads, written by Anthony Mohr.
Anthony is a distinguished author and a judge of 27 years, presiding over the Superior Court of California for the County of Los Angeles.
Mohr chronicles his unusual upbringing, spending alternating weekends between a B-list Hollywood actor dad and a successful businessman stepdad.
So let's get started.
And I noticed Dixon's ready. I can hear that bark, Elaine.
He wants to be on.
Hey there, friends, it's Nancy and Elaine. They're the Deep Diving Divas, it's quite a name. They're diving deep into the things that matter most, from friendships to family and so much more. Join them each week for a splash of fun.
Anthony, welcome to the show. So nice to meet you.
Well, thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Anthony, here's another. We've had a few Beverly Hills High School alumni on the show. And once again, part of that group is Anthony Mohr. Although Anthony is much younger than me. He was a year younger, class behind me. And you know, when you're in high school, 1 year is a really big difference.
It really is. You're so right.
It really was. Our paths were just like that. And it's been in recent years that we connected, and it's been great. It's an honor. It's just an honor, Anthony. Tony.
Same here.
Now we're going to call you Tony, right?
That's fine with me. That's my nickname.
Okay.
My friends call me Tony.
Okay, Tony. Your weekends were split between two different worlds. I mean, Hollywood glamour and middle-class normalcy. So why don't you share with us what prompted you to write this book or memoir?
Well, good question. I was encouraged to write it back around 1980. We had a family friend of my parents who was a literary agent. Her name was Doris Halsey, and she wanted me to write the book, and I was too busy being a lawyer. And then in 1994, I became a judge, and I was too busy being a judge. She kept saying, you got to write this book. And unfortunately, Doris died, which is too bad because she was a fabulous literary agent. She represented Ring Lardner, Aldous Huxley, Turan Kamal, lots of well-known authors. Irving Shulman was another one. But a number of my friends said, you should write your story. And I went to a writer's conference because I always enjoyed creative writing. And I had written 2 short essays about life in LA back in the day, in the early 60s. And the person who looked at this, our instructor, asked me to write a book. And at that point I said, okay, I'll at least give it a try. And I started to write it. But again, was too busy being a judge. And when the pandemic came, I said, all right, time to get serious more. And I sat down and wrote it. That's how it happened.
So you were thinking about it for a long time. It wasn't
and I had a number of short essays published in literary journals here and there. And I was told, look, it's perfectly fine to take those and add them to the book. You know, if you write a memoir, many times early sections of the memoir have appeared in print somewhere. And so that helped me put the work together.
Generally, can you tell us what the book is about?
Well, it's essentially growing up first with my father, who was an actor, and then he left my mother for what we used to call the script girl on a TV series he was filming in Sweden. So he left her, married the script girl. And the same year they got married, which was 1958, my mother was introduced to a businessman and married him, and the two could not have been more opposite. They were absolutely at polar ends. You know, my dad was the, happy, loving, live life large, go lucky, a little bit Peter Panish, big political liberal. He worked for Bobby Kennedy. And he just wasn't really responsible financially. My stepdad was a hard-bitten conservative, also a big disciplinarian who believed in hard work. Now, my dad was work when he acted, but when he didn't act, he slept till noon. Stan, believed that, children shouldn't have that much fun. He said that, quote unquote, one time. And he was constantly on the go, constantly trying to set up a business, work a business, make money, be the big success, later in life, be the big philanthropist, which he actually didn't succeed in doing. But they were polar opposites. And so one weekend I'm, with a very different culture, if you will, from the next weekend.
As a kid, that had to have been in a way fun. Like it sounds like maybe your real dad, was the fun dad, and maybe it was more, get down to work when you were home with your mom and your stepdad. But did you actually know a difference? Could you see a difference as a kid?
Well, I wish you were right when you said that.
Really?
Because my father's second marriage was poisonous. He and his second wife didn't get along. At one point, he moved out. He was going to get a divorce. My mother's second marriage was storybook. They got along beautifully. So in many times when I was over at one place, I was kind of comparing and contrasting with the other. So it wasn't like, gee, I really love being here. I wish we could stay here forever. I might be in one place and think, well, I like, where I live better. And then I go back to Mom and Stan and think, oh, wait a minute, I like my father better. And it was always this sort of back and forth, trying to figure out which was better, which I preferred, or which I disliked the least.
And so when you're writing this memoir, it must have been incredibly cathartic to kind of, how many of us, and not many of us, sit down and go through total reflection, right? Because you're spilling it all in this memoir.
Therapy.
It is therapy.
Let me just kind of tie into that question, because I wonder if your father and stepfather were alive at the time when you were writing this book. I mean, if that could be the situation. Let's just say they were still alive in 2020. Would you have said the things that you said?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I don't know the answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the first question is, would I have written it? The second question is, would I have shown them the manuscript? Memoirs who write about living relatives or parents or spouses always ask that question, do I show it to them? And I'm not sure I would have. Had I shown it to my mother, who wasn't alive when I wrote this, she would have broken down in tears. She would have been appreciative, because I lit her up very well. She was the unsung hero of the book, which I didn't mean to happen, but it did. As I wrote it, it was clear to me as I was going along that my mother was the one who kind of ran interference and, helped me out in many ways. My dad, I think he would have admired the book. Stan, I'm not so sure, but I criticized them both pretty heavily, and I praised them both pretty heavily. So it's hard to say how they would have reacted.
Tony, that's fascinating that you said you didn't know till you wrote the book that your mom was actually the hero in the book. And I find that really wild, because maybe when you're growing up, again, not all of us, unless you've had a lot of trauma, like Elaine and I've had really just fabulous childhoods and loving parents that stayed together. So we didn't have a lot of drama. And, so with that in mind, in reflection, the idea as you wrote this memoir, that you discovered your mom was the hero.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the facts before I wrote the book. I was relying on memory as well as a lot of documents I had, letters I had, and other things. So I kind of knew how she was, but I didn't put it together and analyze it until I really began to write it. Initially, I didn't want her to have a big role in the book. I wanted it to be father versus father. But as I went along, I realized my mother's got a very heavy role here. She is the unsung hero of the book.
That's, I wonder if children today, I mean, I was a teacher. I remember when I taught middle school, 8th grade, about the time that, I don't know if you were about that age, but when your parents got divorced, but parents would come in and they would say to me, I'm not worried about my kids. They're going to be fine. They'll get over all this. It's my life that's really difficult, and I'm the one that's having a hard time. And it was like, the parents always felt like that. But if you were to talk to these young kids today, I don't know if divorce is as prevalent, you being a judge today, as it was, in the 60s, 70s.
Oh, it's 80s. More prevalent.
It's more prevalent. I mean, what would you want to say to them, these kids who are torn? And especially you're the only child.
Right.
no brothers or sisters. You had nobody to be your advocate or your support system. What would you tell them about this back and forth?
First thing I would say is get your parents to get you into therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. It happens more now than it used to then. If your parents are divorced, probably half your friends come from quote unquote broken homes. You don't hear that phrase anymore, but you did back then. Back then, divorce was shameful. It was, of my friends, and fortunately, I could have gone either way in high school. I could have fell in with the bad kids who didn't study and didn't give a what, but I didn't. I fell in with the very good kids who, did well, got great grades, were in student government, like you were vice president of the student body, and, one of my friends was vice president, another was president of the student body, and so on, like that. And not one of them came from a divorced family. None of the guys who were my friends, and still are, believe it or not, none of the girls I knew in the crowd came from a broken home.
Interesting.
Divorce was shameful. Now, I was accepted for it because Stan was a very good stepfather and he was very welcoming to my friends. So nobody gave me a hard time because of the separation.
Who is your target audience now for the book? I mean,
my target audience.
Who would you want to read this book to be able to get some benefit from it?
When I wrote it, I wanted my high school classmates to read it. That was the target audience. Okay. And then a ton beyond that, I wanted people who were interested in old time Hollywood to read it. And I wanted people who come from divorced families to read it, especially people my age, but also kids who were a lot younger. My folks, by the way, divorced when I was 9. It's a bad age to happen, but that's when it did.
Yeah. I can, 9 is such a strong age. I can completely remember age 9, so I can only imagine difficult. But okay, so now fast forward, you became an attorney and a judge. And so what is it about your law practice that maybe helped you to write this book, or did it weave in through the book?
Well, for openers, I never handled divorces. I refused to take a family law case.
Oh.
When I became a judge, I was always concerned that I would be assigned to family law because generally new judges would get that assignment. And it was the last assignment I wanted, and I was lucky. The presiding judge did not give me family law. I would have done it had I been assigned, but fortunately he never did. And so I never had to worry about it because family law for me would have been anathema. I just wanted nothing to do with it. I did get assigned one family law case, and it was because they wouldn't stipulate to the bench officer who was supposed to try those cases. And he walked in and I looked at them and I said, I know nothing about family law, which was true. I never studied it, didn't know anything about it. And I said, it's too bad you picked me because I know nothing about it. So what I'm going to ask you to do is give me a brief on all aspects of family law that you're going to be dealing with in this case, and let me have it in a couple of days. And we'll see where we go so I don't end up doing something completely wrong. And 2 days later, they came in and said, we've settled the case. Which was great.
Yeah, thank goodness, right?
If a kid is going through 2 different families, okay, with opposite parents or opposite cultures, if you will, like mine, it is going to prepare you to be a lawyer and better yet, a judge. Because you're going to see opposite views, opposite cultures, opposite opinions, and you need to handle them, work with them or blend them or live with them or do whatever you're going to do with them. Somebody who comes with one family, I don't care if they're like Leave It to Beavers, that Ward and June Cleaver, you're seeing one type of culture, if you will. And if you get on the bench and you see a dysfunctional family, it's shocking to you and you're not quite sure how to handle it. But if you've got 2 different families, maybe they're both great families, maybe they're both bad families, but you're seeing different attitudes, different approaches to things. It teaches you to see each other's point of view. And when you become a judge and you see people quarreling in your court, you're going to ask, well, what from their point of view, what were they thinking? Why were they doing what they do? It gives you a better ability, an insight, if you will, on behavior. At least it did for me, I hope.
you could go back and talk to your younger self and, you know, from every other weekend, what would you tell them?
Take good notes.
Oh,
Interesting.
really?
Sure. I mean, I wrote the book, I'd say 60% from memory. I'm told I have a good memory, so that worked out. But clearly, if I had taken good notes or maintained a diary, there'd be all sorts of things I could have added to the book, which would have helped. Because your memory is not really that reliable. And people know that when you're reading a memoir. You know, somebody may think, okay, the light was red, and that's when I decided not to cross the street, when in fact, maybe the light was yellow. But you remember it wrong. I'll give you one example from the book. We had a good family friend named Harold Kress. He was a film editor. He won an Oscar for film editing for the movie How the West Was Won.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my mom and Stan and I in 1963, I think it was, or 64, were watching the Oscars. We know Harold is up for the award. And somebody introduces the Oscars. And in my mind, this woman who had kind of blondish hair comes on and says, okay, you know, we're going to do the Oscars for best editing. And she reels off all the nominees and then opens the envelope, Harold Kress. And Harold walks up and he begins his speech. The words thank you were hard to, tell. And I remembered the speech pretty well, opening with the words thank you. So I wrote it because A, I wanted to put it in, and B, Harold and his wife Zelda, right after the awards, came over to our house. And so I got to hold the Oscar in my hand. I had never seen this thing, and I'm playing with it and all of this. So I wanted this in to talk about the exposure to Hollywood. So I finished the chapter and I'm thinking, maybe this is on YouTube. I'd like to watch it.
Oh,
okay. It was on YouTube. And the speech, I pretty well had gotten right. I mean, not every word, prepositions and articles may have been off somewhere, but I got it pretty right. But the person who introduced the awards was not a blonde. It was Sidney Poitier.
Oh, that's quite a change. Quite a difference.
Total change.
That's
Now, how in the thunderation did I miss that?
Yes.
Why would I have seen?
There was probably some attractive blonde. You were, young kid, and you probably just linked it together.
I mean,
hard to say.
Now being a judge now, you must have, when you were really doing it full time. I mean, just always wondering is, what is the truth? I mean, how do you really remember that? That's always, kind of an issue. So, doing this book, I think is probably similar.
Yeah. I mean, I did my darndest to research it right. And I've only made what I know is one little factual mistake in the book. I talked about players on the San Francisco Giants, and I think it was Orlando Cepeda. I mentioned him at a certain point in the year of 1959. And one of my good friends who knows baseball inside out said, no, Cepeda joined in late 1959. So
the average person is not going to know that. So
I had Googled it, and Google said he was on the Giants in 59, but they didn't say when he joined. So that's one inaccuracy in the book. It's the only one I know of so far.
Are you up to writing a new? I think you actually are maybe writing another edition or another part of your memoir.
It wouldn't be an edition of this. I mean, this one's done and over with. Okay. If I write a second book, it would either be about what it's like to be on the bench, or LA back in the day, but turning the lens away from my family and looking at the community. So stay tuned. I'm not sure, but let me ask the two of you, which would you rather read?
I think they both sound fascinating.
Pick one.
I like the idea of LA back when you were growing up. I mean, I'm being a history teacher and loving nostalgia. That really, would get my interest.
I would like that also, because growing up in LA, I told you off camera, I'm the original Valley girl. I grew up in the Valley. You guys are in the city, and how different our lives really were. So I'd love that. Tony, we're going to run out of time, but before we go away, every other weekend, please hold up your book. Love it. Every other weekend, coming of age with two different dads. Where can they buy the book?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I do have a website, anthonyjmohr.com. Any of those places. I think Amazon is the best place. You can get it on Kindle. It's not expensive on Kindle. There's Paperback. I like the paperback edition better than the hardback edition. Plus the fact it's cheaper.
So I have a quick
it's available.
question for you. It's not, definitely, would you ever do an Audible? Because who better than you to read your own book?
Good question. I've thought about it. People have asked me that a number of times. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Right. It's
But
a
I might.
compliment.
I might will.
Anthony, I want to brag for you, but you have won so many awards when this book came out and continues to get attention. It's got a long life. It's timeless, the message. Can you tell us a couple of the awards that you've gotten?
They're minor awards. The American Writing Award gave it first in memoir. An Australian contest called Brew, which is books, reviews, and everything written, named it Memoir of the Year for this year. What others? The Insapir Award gave it something. Firebird, the Firebird Award gave it first place for nonfiction back in 24, I believe. There were quite a few. I would say there were about 14 or 15, if I may.
That's
brag.
incredible, because it's not just your friends saying that it's good or us saying that it's good. To get outsiders, strangers, that's really something.
What about the movie right? This would be a good movie. What about the movie rights? I mean,
Again, people have said that. I haven't pursued it.
You haven't.
I haven't pursued
Okay, so if anybody out there in Hollywood, if you like the story, first go buy it, and next you'll know where to find them. Tony, Anthony. Yeah, Anthony Mohr, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's great seeing you both.
Call you Tony. So do we do. It was great. So many more questions I want to ask you, but maybe for another time.
Okay, you got it.
Yes.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye, Elaine. Bye, Nancy.
Okay. You know, it's interesting, Nancy, when I asked Tony, you know, who did he really write the book for, or what was the target audience? And he said he wrote the book really first and foremost for his classmates in high school, because so much of the book talks about those tender years. And I think no matter where you are out there, whatever high school you went to and where, I think you'll identify with these years and the memories and the challenges and how important your family life was to you, if it was positive or negative. But it's a beautiful story. Coming of age, definitely.
Well, he's a beautiful writer, and he really draws you in, and you kind of feel like you were there growing up with him, with his two different, family lives. So I think you better run, don't walk, especially on Amazon, to buy the book. Okay, if you want to reach us, we'd love to hear from you. Do you like the kind of guests we're having? Who would you like us to cover? You can always email us, thedeepdivingdivas@gmail.com. And listen to our podcast. Follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook. We're everywhere at Deep Diving Divas. Elaine, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It's always.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.